It's time for some content, baby. And in particular, it is time for content that I think you guys will like, okay? I think you guys will like this. It is Mehdi Hasan going toe-to-toe with Piers Morgan, all right? When will you get back? I will either be back to stream on Sunday or Monday.
But the real problems is...
Here we go. I don't expect there to be any kind of productive conversation between Piers Morgan and Mehdi Hasan because Piers Morgan doesn't have consistent political positions, but I do expect Mehdi Hasan to blow to pieces his terrible points. So that will be fun. Remember, folks, we are 4 subs away from our next content goal, so consider it. Let's dive in, shall we?
You're famous for interview style that begins with condemn this group, that group, that group. Let me finish before you keep suggesting I'm supporting October 7th, which I have not.
Sounds like you're justifying it to me.
You know what? Can I finish a sentence?
Booby traps are not allowed if...
Is he really still doing the do you condemn Hamas? Because otherwise I'm going to assume that you loved October 7th.
They are genuinely indiscriminate.
You don't think going off in a grocery store is indiscriminate?
No, actually...
I'm not playing this game, Piers, because I'm not here to talk about the rules of war.
You say, Mehdi.
This, by the way, it was before the invasion of Lebanon, obviously. That happened today, so this was recorded a few days ago. Oh, that's true. Piers Morgan does have one very specific thing that gets him hard on a topic, and that is the monarchy. You are correct on that, Stardust Bun. I'm sorry. Gotta correct the record.
All roads lead to the occupation.
Yes.
Okay? Israel would say all roads lead to Iran.
Who cares what Israel says? They've lied for the last year. They've lied for 30 years.
Who cares what they say? I'm curious what you think Israel could do that would pass your test.
Probably not much. I'm as close to I'm as close to a pacifist as you can get.
Just saying I want it, I want peace and joy. You sound like Kamala Harris. Well, 2 seismic issues are dominating the global news agenda. What happens next in each of them will have a profound impact on the state of the world. The first, of course, is the forthcoming US presidential election. The second is the crisis now engulfing the Middle East. My next guest has strident views on both these big stories. He's not shy about airing them. Joining me in the studio is editor and CEO of Zeteo News, Mehdi Hasan. Mehdi, how are you?
Good to see you,
We
Piers.
have never met in person.
No.
Until now.
No, Twitter makes you think we have.
I feel like Piers Morgan is one of those guys who just, like, his main purpose in life is just to, like, meet people so he can name drop them at a party, you know?
It was great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Great
Good
to
be
meet
in London.
you. Always enjoy our debates, which they are. Let's start with what's happening in Lebanon, because we may find some areas of agreement here, I suspect.
Like, I also feel like, for the most part, Piers Morgan is probably also one of those guys who's like, yeah, I mean, if it's on, you know, if we're on camera, we're fighting, but, like, off camera, we're buddies, right?
But first of all, Hezbollah. Do you see a distinction between Hezbollah and, say, Hamas?
In what sense?
In what they are, what they represent, how they have acted.
I mean, they're very different groups. They operate in different places, in different contexts. I guess what they have in common is that they both came out of Israel's occupation of their land, right? Hamas comes out of the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, and many people are not aware of the fact that Israel occupied Lebanon, southern Lebanon, for 18 years, from 1982 to 2000, when they withdrew, although the Lebanese...
Yep. That's why there's a fringe movement to build settlements in southern Lebanon. They were already there.
Argue that they're still an occupation of a piece of Lebanese land called the Sheba Farms. So in that sense, they're similar. They're obviously different in some of their tactics. They're different religions. Well, they're different sects. I apologize, not different. They're both Muslim, but one is Shia, one is Sunni. They're both backed by Iran. I mean, look, there's similarities, differences. I think what's really interesting this time round is we've seen for a year Israel killing thousands of civilians in Gaza and saying, well, Hamas is to blame because of human shields, because of tunnels. That argument just does not work in Lebanon. They've killed 550 people, Piers, on Monday.
Mr. Miyagi, a lot of conservative pundits do in fact play a character on TV, and then they want it. A lot of them approach their job like, oh, it's all just it's team sports, win or lose, whatever, we both got paid, like that's kind of a lot of the thinking in this space, especially for conservative folks who want to be buddy with like a gay celebrities and such.
An insane amount of people in a single day, one of the highest single-day death tolls in modern warfare. Almost all of them civilians, according to the Lebanese health ministry, which is not Hezbollah, by the way. They always say Hamas-controlled health ministry in Gaza. So I think what we've seen is so phenomenally bad on Israel's end and so little defense. October 7th was used, as you and I have discussed before, as the excuse for killing tens of thousands of Palestinians.
Well, I would categorize it differently. I don't think they use it as an excuse to go and kill tens of thousands of Palestinians.
I want you all to engrave this moment in your minds. Like, I don't think they're using it as an excuse to go in and kill tens of thousands of Palestinians. Because I guarantee you, at some point in this debate, it could be in like a minute, could be in like 5 minutes, could be in like 10 minutes in this conversation. But at some point, Piers Morgan is going to come back around on this and use October 7th as an excuse for why Israel had to kill tens of thousands of Palestinian children.
They responded to one of the most egregious terror attacks of modern times.
But when does the response end? We're nearly a year in.
Well, that's the question. That is the question.
Well, that's when it becomes an excuse. When you carry on killing and killing.
Is it an excuse, or is it that they are wedded to the elimination of Hamas because Hamas has persistently said, we want to keep doing the same thing over and over again? And there's a correlation with Hezbollah, whose charter is very explicit. They stand for the eradication of Israel. I mean, that's what they're about.
That doesn't justify killing 500 people in a single day, does it?
I didn't say it did, but
that's what bothers me.
I didn't say it just... That's kind of what you're implying, though, isn't it? Right? Like, you're kind of saying, like, oh, well, they're... Like, if it's irrelevant to the conversation, why did you bring it up? It literally took 30 seconds. It really did, right? Yeah, Mehdi Hasan keeps his cool a lot better than I would.
Yeah, that's what happened this week. That's the big story. Hezbollah's charter is irrelevant to what we're talking about. That's not why they killed 500 people on Monday, Piers. Hezbollah's charter's been around for years.
I don't think it's irrelevant that you have a terror group on your doorstep who are wedded to your extinction. Why is that irrelevant?
I think the language you use is loaded, Piers. You say on your doorstep. Do you know they did a poll of Americans a while back who thought that Palestinians were occupying Israel? When we talk about this stuff, we make it sound like Israel is the one being occupied, besieged. Israel's the one that's occupying the West Bank, Gaza, longest military occupation in the world, going back to 1967. Israel is the country that occupied southern Lebanon. I mean, everything in the world did not begin on October the 7th. 1978, Israel invades southern Lebanon. 1982, Israel invades southern Lebanon. Sabra and Shatila massacre. 2006, Second Lebanon War, murder 100 people.
But you always make it sound like they're just doing this for the sake of it. They're not.
What are they doing it for?
Well, they've been provoked by Hezbollah.
Hezbollah didn't exist in 1978, Piers.
OK, I'm talking about the specifics of going on now. The provocation since October the 7th. Hezbollah's first response to October the 7th.
Oh, okay. Like, yet again, October the 7th name dropped. That only took like 2 more minutes. You're kind of implying here, Piers, that the 500 people bombed in a single day was justified because of October 7th. You see how you've now drawn that squirrel line, that through line here.
Was to unleash rockets on Israel.
That's not true.
On October the 8th.
That's not true. That's not true.
That is what happened.
Where did they fire their first rocket?
They fired rockets on the 8th.
Where?
Well, you tell me.
No, you just said they fired at Israel. Where?
Well, they fired in the direction of Israel.
God, I love Mehdi.
Where did they hit? They fired at the Sheba Farms.
Tell me.
I do. They fired at the Sheba Farms, which, as I said earlier, is an area of Syria. Well, the Lebanese claim it's Lebanon. Syria claims it's Lebanon. Israel says no and is occupying the Sheba Farms. They fired at Israeli military installations in the Sheba Farms. Now, have they got fired in Israel?
So they were firing at Israel. They were firing at an area that Israel says is theirs.
No, Israel doesn't say that. Israel says it's Syria's. Because remember, Piers, Israel is occupying Syria and the West Bank and Gaza And Lebanon would argue parts of Lebanon. This is the problem, right? The core of the problem is Israel's territorial expansionism.
It's a mess.
Attacks, not a mess. It's Israel occupying multiple Arab lands, which leads to quote-unquote resistance or quote-unquote terrorism, whichever word. I don't care what word you want to use right now. But that is the core, right? You had John Mearsheimer on the show this week, made the same point. Deal with the occupation, then you deal with the violence. And look, has Hezbollah fired into Israel at civilian targets? Yes, I don't agree with that. But the reality is 82% of the exchange of fire between Lebanon and Israel since October the 7th has been done by Israel.
Okay.
82%.
But here's
is that not a provocation of
Let
Hezbollah?
me finish my point, which is that since October the 8th, 19,000 missiles, rockets have come from Hezbollah to Israel, right?
Just out of curiosity here. 19,000? Okay, we'll use that number. Okay. I'm bad at math. If that's just 18% of the missiles and rockets being fired or bombs being exchanged here, there's a lot of bombs being dropped on Lebanon since then.
But way more from Israel into Lebanon.
Well, I'm sure,
82%.
of course they've responded. What else are they supposed to do?
82%.
I'm not good at math. I got a degree in English for a reason, okay?
But this is not two equal sides.
So they can't defend themselves.
But the vast majority of attacks is on Lebanon.
Okay, but would you condemn the firing of rockets by Hezbollah or not?
Of course, I condemn all attacks on civilian targets.
Well,
we know that, Piers. We've discussed this.
I'm going to come to Israel's response.
I don't come on shows to defend militant groups or foreign governments.
Okay. So
I come on shows to say, let's end the violence.
Yeah.
Let's sort out what the solution is.
Yeah.
Let's look at the root cause of the violence. It is undeniable that the root cause of the violence is Israel, Israel's occupation, the genocide in Gaza. What did the leader of Hezbollah say? He said, we won't fire any rockets if you end the killing in Gaza. What did the president of Iran say? We won't retaliate for what you did to Ismail Haniyeh on Iranian soil if you end the killing in Gaza. What did the Houthis say? We'll stop blocking ships if you end the killing in Gaza. Where do all roads lead back to?
Why would you believe any of those people?
I don't believe any of them. I'm Ronald Reagan.
You're citing them as if there's sort of gospel statements from people who have unimpeachable.
I'll tell you why, if you let me finish. I'm Ronald Reagan.
A bunch of terrorists said, we won't do X, Y, Z if you do this.
I'm Ronald Reagan. I say verify. Call their bluff. If they're lying, call their bluff. Stop the Gaza fighting and then see what happens.
Yeah, but Israel has called Hamas's bluff.
When?
There was a ceasefire in place before.
Yeah, the ceasefire...
October the 7th.
That's not true.
Well, it is true.
That's not true.
It's literally not true. If there was a ceasefire, you wouldn't have snipers killing, Palestinians or reporters in that region.
Well, it is true.
It's fundamentally false. They were attacking Palestinians the week before October the 7th.
There was...
In September, you can Google it on that tablet. What's your definition of a ceasefire?
Well,
Israel gets to attack people and not the other way around.
Okay.
In September, hold on. In September, you just made a charge that's not true. There's a tablet there. You can Google it. Guardian headline right there. You can go see the news report.
I don't Google during interviews.
Well, afterwards, everyone can. There's a Guardian headline, September 2023, a month before October the 7th. The headline is Palestinians shot in the ankles by Israel in Gaza, attacked. There were airstrikes in Gaza. And by the way, Gaza is not isolated. Gaza and the West Bank under international law are one entity. There were several hundred Palestinians killed in the West Bank before October.
But my point to you, Mehdi,
so there was no ceasefire. You just can't say it's just not true.
They would say there was a ceasefire,
and it's not true.
We'd say otherwise.
The facts say otherwise, Piers.
But what I've noticed,
what I like about Mehdi Hasan is that he actually has the speed of speech of Ben Shapiro, but a much better grasp of rhetoric than Ben Shapiro. You know, he much better politics than compared to Ben Shapiro, you know? So he's able to get in like real quick. You notice him do it right here.
There was a ceasefire.
And it's not true.
There's a ceasefire, and it's not true. Like, immediate follow-up. It's so good. His debate reflexes are top tier. S+ debater.
We'd say otherwise.
The facts say otherwise, Piers.
But what I've noticed with you is you always downplay anything which might be deemed by Israel to be provocation.
No.
You're always
Not at all.
very,
Did I
very...
downplay October 7th? I don't think I ever have on your show or anywhere else.
No, but,
it's a horrible crime.
But what you do, you in your debating style, and it's an impressive debating style, but you always...
Even Piers Morgan's like, geez, he's making me look bad.
Pivot back to, yeah, but the real problem's Israel. Yeah, but the real problem's Israel.
Hold on. If we're going to talk about styles, Piers, you're famous for interview style that begins with condemn this group, that group, that group. On Monday, 500... Hold on. Let me finish my point, then you come back in. 500 people were killed on Monday. 100 women, 50 children. I assume you condemn that and don't support the killing of civilians in Lebanon, right? 500 people died. That's the equivalent of 30,000 Americans or 6,000 Brits in a day.
Sure.
And yet we started...
That's crazy. If you make that proportional to the United States, that is so many people. 30,000 Americans proportionally. That's... I hadn't even thought of examining the numbers in that way. That's actually mind-blowingly terrible. Oh my god. Ravenwood, thank you very much for subscribing. I appreciate it. Adding another one to the board here. We're now 3 subscribers away from new content.
Did this interview with Hezbollah Charter. So if you're going to talk about styles, you're focusing on the wrong thing.
Okay.
I'm going to focus on 500 people dead.
Okay, let me go back to the week before, where 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists were targeted specifically.
How do you know that?
What do you mean? How do I know that?
You just said 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists were targeted.
How many was it?
I don't know. I'm asking you. Made the claim. How
That is what's been reported.
By
Do
who?
you dispute that?
Yeah, I dispute everything Israel says.
You don't know the real
year,
number. You don't know the real number.
But I didn't give a number. You did.
Well, what has been the number?
You made a claim, Piers. He's asking you to back up the claim.
From the other side.
I didn't give a number. You said 3,000 terrorists. I'm wondering why.
That is what's been reported.
No, it's not reported. It's what's said by Israel. Or it's what's said by people speaking on behalf of Israel. So was a little girl...
Hey, Thistles for Eyes, thank you for the gifted membership over on YouTube. I very much appreciate that.
Hang on. Israel hasn't even said it, did it?
They have in private. It's been reported widely.
No,
to the American government.
Okay, but don't say they said it publicly. They haven't.
But...
Obviously, I believe they did it, right? But
I believe they did it too.
You're saying they said this in public.
You just gave a 3,000 number, and I'm wondering... I just saw a little girl's funeral last week. Was she a Hezbollah terrorist, in your view?
No.
So then why did you say 3,000 terrorists? There was a kid killed.
No, I was about to say that in the process of targeting very specifically, in an extraordinarily outdoor...
Oh, Pengu Dengu, we're watching Mehdi drive circles around Piers. He's doing full-on donuts and whippets right now.
Whichever way
in a terror attack?
Well, that's what I'm going to come to. So they target 3,000 Hezbollah terrorists with their pagers, walkie-talkies, and so on. In the process, a small, comparative to that number, a small number of civilians get killed, which is obviously deplorable. But my point to you is, if someone's been chucking rockets over for a year at you and your people, you've had to displace 60,000 people from the north of your country because of his relentless bombardment. And you eventually respond in such a precise, targeted fashion.
Okay.
Right? And
I do have to say, this to me, this read, like, with the knowledge that 500 people, 500 civilians being killed is like the equivalent of 10 9/11s worth of people in the United States being killed, like, proportionally to our population sizes. This does really come across to me as like, well, this comes across to me as unhinged as someone saying 9/11 was justified because, you know, some people at the Pentagon died. You know, like that, you know, we killed some people at the Pentagon, but, you know, the other people were acceptable losses. Like, that's insane. That's an insane argument to make.
And in the process, some civilians are killed, which is never acceptable, can never be condoned, never be supported. But if it is right, as has been widely reported by all mainstream media, that 3,000 terrorists
people associated with Hezbollah. Not everybody in Hezbollah is a terrorist.
Okay. But, okay.
Like a driver, a nurse.
3,000 members of Hezbollah were targeted, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that that is, some people have claimed is...
Keep in mind, Hezbollah also has, like, like a civilian wing that operates as a formal political party within Lebanon. So like, are they just targeting the military wing? Are they killing the members in the civilian government? Like what? We aren't given information that allows us to really like differentiate, you know? We're just all supposed to assume they were armed Hezbollah terrorists.
Unlawful.
Yep.
You've said it's a terror attack. So you think it was illegal.
Yep.
But I would say that's not. I mean, I would say that if you look at that in totality, they are responding to rocket attacks all year, and they are being extremely precise. Unlike what they've been doing in Gaza, where I do not accept that Israel has been doing this precision targeting they keep talking about, and I've held them to account for that. I do think in this particular occasion, they were extremely precise, and it was a brilliant piece of warfare, right, if you want to call it that. Notwithstanding, I don't like any war, nor do you. But my point is, surely that is justified. I mean, in some parts of this, you have to say Israel's entitled to defend itself.
So actually, Lebanon is the one that needs to defend itself. As we say, 500 people killed on a day. Look, you are right. You have held. I've watched your interviews with Israeli spokespersons. You have held them to account on their nonsense about casualty numbers. But let me just say three very brief things on that. Number one, you said just a moment ago when they eventually respond. You use that phrase eventually. That's just factually inaccurate. We already discussed.
No, you talked about
82% of the attacks. Yeah. They have been bombing Lebanon for a year. Now you can say who started it, whatever. I'm not talking about. But they've been attacking Lebanon.
But this is a significant escalation.
Yes, but 5 days after October the 7th, or 6 days after, they killed a Reuters video journalist in southern Lebanon, a man called Issam Abdullah, killed, according to Reporters Without Borders, targeted by Israel.
Yeah, we covered that part. We saw the reporters that were there. There was like an international association of reporters that came out and condemned Israel for essentially a military helicopter approaching the location of these journalists and repeatedly firing. You know, like we've covered this. It's actually crazy. But this has been ongoing for a very long time.
According to the UN, a war crime, right? So they have been killing people in Lebanon who have nothing to do with Hezbollah for a year now. So let's not say eventually. Number two, I would say, yes, it's an act of terror. And that's just not my view. You know Leon Panetta, former Obama defense secretary, former head of the CIA. When the former head of the CIA comes out and says Israel is committing an act of terror, I think we should take that seriously. But it's not just him. A group of UN special rapporteurs on human rights and extrajudicial killings put out a statement.
But many other people have said it was not an act of
course,
terror.
and that's the problem with international law. People can argue it all ways. You know that you and I are not lawyers, but we know that lawyers can argue
multiple things. But do you not think that action was justified?
No, of course not. I don't think you should booby-trap devices. It's against international law to use booby traps. I think I'm actually petrified, separate to the politics of the Middle East, Piers. I'm actually petrified at the ability of governments to use technology and surveillance to track us and now kill us. I think there's a wider discussion to be had. I think the idea that Israel keeps opening the doors to all sorts of new precedents that other governments will run with and we will regret. I think, you know, going into the supply chain of devices, phones, beepers, whatever, pages.
I mean, yeah, there is a direct line of transfer between Israel's defense forces and special forces and the training United States cops receive. And that training then comes home and is used on us. Okay? Like, he's not wrong, and that kind of that kind of relationship exists between Israel and a lot of different places. A lot of crowd control technology, a lot of, urban pacification equipment and techniques all get tested in Gaza first. It's largely seen by a lot of powers around the world as a place for testing, crowd control measures, we'll say.
I think that's very, very worrying.
Cyber
I also
warfare
think from a practical point of view, it's not targeted. If you blow up a guy with a pager, even if you think he's a terrorist or a terrorist leader, you don't know if he's driving, he's at an intersection, he's about to crash his car into children crossing the road. We saw them going off in grocery stores. It's taken out people's eyes, fingers. No, I don't think it's targeted. I think it's barbaric. I think it's illegal. And I also think, look, I say this all the time, Even if I was an Israeli, I would not support this. It doesn't make Israel safer. Do you think Israel's safer today?
Would you support then any
They just fired a rocket at Tel Aviv.
Let me ask you, would you then, by your criteria, is there any military response that Israel can give, first to what Hamas did on October the 7th, and second to what Hezbollah has been doing ever since? Is there any military response Israel can do which, in your eyes, would be justified?
Well, I don't accept the loaded question. You say response. Israel is the aggressor in all of these places. As I say, they are illegal.
Yeah. Like, well, also the other thing is you negotiate with your enemies. Like, if you want peace, you have to talk. You actually have to, like, come to the table and talk. If you're not coming to the table to talk, then, like, you're not actually seeking peace. Like, full stop. If you're not coming to the table to talk in good faith with an intention of actually finding peace, it's like you're just doing a PR stunt.
The aggressor on October the 7th, was it?
Well, it was actually, because it was occupying Gaza and it was besieging Gaza for 20 years, and even in Israeli general.
You're sounding like you think it was justified what Hamas did.
No.
It's one or the other.
Why? How is it justified?
So it wasn't justified.
Of course not. I've said that many times.
So was Israel not entitled to respond?
No, but I'm questioning you use the word response. Response implies everything starts on October 7th.
No,
I don't accept your timeline.
I've never said that.
Well, you keep saying response.
To that specific terror attack, in a way that if in England somebody suddenly launched an attack on our people and they killed 1,200 and wounded nearly 7,000, I would absolutely expect my government to respond with substantial force. Would you?
Yes, but Britain...
So you would?
Hold on. But is Britain occupying territory in that scenario? Because that's the key point here. It's Shlomo Brom...
It's dangerous wording.
No, it's not dangerous, because I'm...
Dangerous wording? You're getting awfully close to talking about the Troubles.
It sounds like... I don't disagree.
You're getting awfully close to talking about the Troubles, and that makes me think about my king in an uncomfortable way.
With you.
I'm going to quote... If you let me finish, before you keep suggesting I'm supporting October 7th, which I have not.
Sounds like you're justifying it to me.
Well,
you're saying,
not
they're being
attention.
occupied. They're being occupied.
They are occupied, or they're not occupied.
I think they probably are, yeah.
Not probably.
They're called the occupied territories, Piers. Are you not familiar with the name?
The ICJ says they're occupied. Yeah. Shlomo Brom, who's one of the former top Israeli generals, one of their big strategists, said after October the 7th, what did you expect? If you keep people under military occupation,
is that what you think?
They will rise up. Yeah, of course. There's always going to be terrorism.
What do you expect?
Yeah, there's always going to be terrorism and violence as long as you oppress people.
On that scale, you expected that?
No, obviously, I don't expect the details, but do you expect Palestinians to fight back? Of course you do. Everyone who's sane, who looks...
Literally, all of the generals in the IDF for decades knew exactly what the treatment of Palestinian civilians would do in Gaza and the West Bank. They knew what this would do. They did it anyway. They did it on purpose for this exact outcome.
So this conflict from American presidents downwards would say the root cause of the violence has to be ending the conflict.
I agree.
So then talking about tit-for-tat responses
but I also think if you go back
sense.
If you go back to the start in 1948, which I've had many scholars on from both sides of this, probably the most interesting piece I read about this was Jonathan Friedland of The Guardian, who's a Jewish journalist, who concluded, you can construct, if you're reasonably fair-minded about all this, you can construct a solid argument for both sides to feel aggrieved from the very start of this conflict.
Fair enough.
Yeah. That's kind of the nature of the conflict, right? The cycle of violence. Yeah. But both sides being aggrieved doesn't mean one side gets to kill tens of thousands of mostly children.
And that's a different argument. I'm talking about what you talk about now.
My point is, when people say it didn't start October the 7th...
Well, I'm not even going back to 1948. I'm talking about 20 years of...
Your level of agreement doesn't give you justification to do war crimes. I'm sorry. Not even as a treat.
Gaza under blockade.
I know.
Piers. Yeah, open-air prison camp, to quote David Cameron, that well-known pro-Palestinian lefty.
But also Hamas, in that process since 2005, have clearly run Gaza in a despicable manner.
Yeah, agreed.
You wouldn't disagree?
No.
So it's not all Israel's fault, is it?
Well, no, because you're mixing different things up. Is Hamas...
But you're always very keen to put it all on Israel.
No, because if we're talking about...
I try and be a little bit more like,
hang on. When
you commit a terror attack on the scale of October 7th...
You both sides occupation and illegal...
No, I don't.
Yeah, you are. You just said,
I don't.
I try and be fair. You can't be fair to an occupier. By the way, when we talk about Russia and Ukraine, this is what frustrates me. And I know my friend Owen Jones sat here and said the same thing to you. When we talk about Russia and Ukraine, you don't do both sides. You blame Russia as the invader and occupier. You don't do that with Israel. That is the double standard on your part.
No,
I try and be consistent, Piers. I'm morally consistent.
No, because
I say Russia...
Yeah, no, fair point by Mehdi Hasan here. Like, and Owen Jones. Like, if you're gonna have this position, be consistent about it. I am consistent in that same way. Condemn Russia for the invasion. Condemn Israel for the invasion. Condemn Russia for atrocities against civilians. Condemn Israel for atrocities against civilians. And you know what? I also condemn Hamas for atrocities against civilians. It's actually remarkably easy to be on the right side of this issue. You don't have to do mental gymnastics to justify murders en masse of children. The position I'm in, and the position Mehdi Hasan is in, and the position Owen Jones is in, very easy to hold. Don't have to be like a mental contortionist in your effort to try and justify the murder of children.
Hold on, let me finish the sentence. Russia illegally invaded and occupied Israel and illegally annexed the Crimea. And Israel is doing the same thing in the West Bank, Gaza, the Golan Heights.
As you know, they are completely...
Chat is edging that 120 like a bowling ball.
Salmon Moose, thank you for the 2 gifted Tier 1 subs, bringing us to 120. That's even more content for your content holes. Simric, thank you for the $5
Israel
donut.
has used up all of the goodwill and sympathy from the Holocaust and are now the bad guys.
I would not put it that way. I wouldn't say that the sympathy from the Holocaust is used up. At all? I do really want to emphasize this. Jewish people are not Israel. Israel is a state. Jewish people are people.
Different.
Yeah, Israel's worse. It's been going on much longer. Well, people living under much worse conditions.
But
they've killed more kids.
But there is no similarity in these two situations.
Agreed. Israel's is worse.
It's not.
How many kids have been killed in Ukraine versus Gaza?
Well, in 1 year.
Ever.
In 1 year?
Ever. Take whatever point you want. More kids have been killed in Gaza than in Ukraine.
Okay.
Every human rights group agrees with that.
What's happened in Ukraine? We can come to Ukraine. What happened in Ukraine is a Russian dictator invaded.
Yeah, honestly, there is a very good argument to be made that Israel was created largely because Europeans wanted a colony in that area to maintain control over the Suez Canal. And also, no European country wanted to take in the displaced diaspora of Jewish people. So it was a convenient solution to a problem of widespread and deeply held anti-Semitism in Europe.
Illegally.
We agree on Ukraine.
Yeah.
But we don't agree on Israel because you're not consistent.
I think Israel is much more complicated.
That's complicated, as my friend Ta-Nehisi Coates pointed out the other way, is just a good way of avoiding attributing moral responsibility. It's complicated.
Oh, in the minds of most people, that could be. Like, if you're not politically brain poisoned, yeah, you might be making that conflation. But I think states are not a people. It is a pretty simple concept to convey to most normies. And I would encourage you, if you have friends that are making this type of, like, you know, normie friends who are making this conflation, please urge them away from it. It's a horribly unhealthy outlook to have on geopolitics.
No, it's not complicated, actually. Israel is the occupier under international law. Israel is the one killing the vast majority of civilians. Right now, it's not a liberal democracy. It's run by neo-fascists right now.
I know you're not JQing. I know that you are just talking about the general ignorance of normal folks who don't pay attention to politics, and that is unfortunately a barrier we brush up against. Simric, I feel you on that.
I don't disagree with you. There are some right-wing headbangers on that cabinet. I also think that Netanyahu has to go. I also think the whole of Hamas have to go, right?
Under no scenario is it liberal democracy, right?
The issue is, even if Netanyahu did leave, I don't think that there is a mechanism in like the politically radicalized Likud party to actually rein in any potential successor. I don't think that there is any mechanism that would cause internal to Israel that would cause them to stand down now, even if you did like a regime change.
Right now, Palestinians do not have the same rights.
But let me come back to my point about Hezbollah, because that's the most current part of this crisis over there. We'll cover all this. We've got plenty of time. With Hezbollah, my point to you would simply be that if someone does what Hezbollah did on October the 8th, has carried on doing it all year, they have a charter which says they want to eradicate Israel. You have to defend yourself. So the question then becomes, what type of defence or response or reaction or revenge, whatever you want to call it, I don't want you to get caught in the semantics of a word, but what kind of thing can Israel do, given that direct threat to them, to their existence?
Now, to Piers Morgan's credit, this is, I think, a very reasonable question to ask. You know, what would the acceptable course of action be for a state that is engaging in this type of relationship with its neighbors? And frankly, the answer is stop occupying them and negotiate with them in good faith. Like, that is the simplest, easiest way to actually ensure peace within Israel. To ensure peace, you have to be willing to come to the table in peace. And that has not been evidenced as any particular goal that the current administration in Israel has when it comes to negotiating with, you know, Hamas or Hezbollah now.
And the same sort of ideology applies in argument.
Step 1. Stop the fighting. Step 2. Create two separate states. Step 3. Regional and neutral nations provide security forces to stand between Israel and Palestine.
True. Simric, thank you for the $20 dono. I very, very much appreciate that. Right? No. Yes. But like, I at this point, I am kind of like, is a two-state solution still possible? Technically, yes. But I have been listening more to like ideas of like, well, really, like, Israel occupies this territory already. It has been occupying it for 50 years. You know, it might be time to just push for enfranchisement of the people who are currently living under occupation so that they have full citizenship and rights, and could maybe advocate for themselves politically. But I also don't think that option is really on the table. So it's kind of academic, I guess, at this point. God.
To Hamas. But with Hezbollah specifically, this state within a state in Lebanon, which is far better armed, far more powerful, far more resourced,
far more popular with the people, part of the government.
Wouldn't that shift the demographics overnight? Yeah, that's exactly why a one-state solution currently isn't in the cards. It's because Israel is set up to be primarily an ethno-state, and you undermine the ethno-state concept of Israel if you enfranchise too many Palestinians, frankly. So that's why they haven't annexed their occupied territories in 50 years, you know? Demographics is something racists talk about? Not necessarily.
Small part of Lebanese society.
And was created by 1,500 members of the Iranian Revolutionary
Supported,
Guard.
Not created, but yes.
But I understand your point here.
Well, they train.
They're also indigenous to Lebanon.
They train.
They're not foreign force.
So my point is,
night, Melanie.
What can Israel do that would actually tick your box of being justified?
My box is a very minimum box. My box is Hippocratic. Do no harm. Don't kill civilians. So
you don't respond.
No. You don't respond. This is the same argument with Gaza. You don't respond by killing 40,000 people.
What do you do?
What do you do?
What do you do? if you're Israel?
Target Hezbollah people.
How?
I don't know. Jonathan Conricus came on your show last week.
They couldn't have been...
IDF colonel. He said they're not in civilian areas.
How? I mean, you learned about... You have moles in their operation that are capable of telling you when and where a meeting is taking place. I don't know. Like, there are a lot of options outside of leveling several apartment complexes. I would think.
So we're able to target them. Okay, target them then if you want to target them. Under the rules of war, you can target combatants. But Piers, hold on. You just said earlier, let me finish my point, then you come back in.
No, Mehdi.
Go on, then I'm going to finish my point.
You literally just said you can target combatants.
Yes.
But when they did that last week with the walkie-talkies and pages, you said, no, that's a terror attack. It's illegal.
That's because it's not a targeted attack. You're just distributing phones and pagers into a population center.
Hold on.
Couldn't have been a more precise targeting of combatants?
Because A, they didn't just target combatants, as we've just discussed. B, they did it in civilian areas. And C, they did it in violation of the amended Protocol 2 of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, which doesn't allow booby traps.
So there is no...
I already explained the booby traps.
Actually, no, that's not true. It's not true.
Okay.
Booby traps are not allowed if they are genuinely indiscriminate in the way that they potentially...
They are indiscriminate, Piers. That's how you got them exploding in public places. Because they're indiscriminate. Because they're bombs. You turned thousands of people into unwilling suicide bombers. And you're trying to argue that that is not an act of terror. They're bombs. They're definitionally not discriminate.
Off in a grocery store is indiscriminate.
No, actually, I believe what I've seen...
You gave the British example earlier, Piers. Are you okay with someone blowing you up in Sainsbury's, the guy next to you, blowing you up in Sainsbury's?
I believe that what has been reported, right, widely reported, is that 3,000 terrorist militants, Hezbollah members, whatever you want to call them, were very precisely targeted.
Are you saying people...
By your criteria...
Did they go off in grocery stores and hospitals?
If it's legal...
Piers, did they go off in grocery stores and hospitals? No, you brought up the UK earlier. We're in London right now. If I go from here to the local Sainsbury's to pick up some chocolate on the way out of the studio, and a terrorist is targeted next to me and they're blowing up in Sainsbury's and I lose my eyes, you're saying that's okay?
No, but if you have
Sounds
people...
like you're saying it's okay.
If those people in that grocery store are literally responsible for firing rocket after rocket at
You're okay with them being blown up with me? I'm just collateral damage.
I actually looked at what they did and I thought it was a very precisely targeted
What about the 500... What about the...
I looked at what they did based on the story and narrative and information presented by the IDF, and I came to the conclusion that it was actually very good.
500 civilians killed on Monday, which you just don't want to talk about today.
I'm going to come to that.
You keep saying that. The time's nearly up. 500 people.
I came to the conclusion it was very good. You know, like, I'm not going to question any of the underlying motives of why someone might be highly motivated to put this in a very positive light to me.
Not nearly up. Well, we'll be talking for literally 15 minutes. Stop racing the clock down.
I have another show to do, Piers.
Hang on.
500 people died on Monday.
I've come in early for you.
500.
I was looking for a thank you, Piers.
Thank you, Piers. 500 people were killed on Monday. You're not talking about that.
I am going to talk about
it sounds like you're justifying that.
I am going to talk about that.
I've not justified October 7th.
First of all, before we get to that, I just want to get inside your head about what you think is legitimate, because you said a very interesting thing. One, what they did was a terror attack, even though they would say they targeted specifically combatants, and that is lawful.
But that's not true, though. We know that's not true.
Well, it is true.
It's not true.
It is true. You can never...
Kids, doctors, nurses...
No, you can never target combatants and not involve civilians, ever.
That's funny, because Israel were bragging...
Wow. You can never target combatants, and civilians won't be in the way. Oh, so you are justifying 500 civilians being blown up in a single day. You are actually justifying that. You just think that, you know, they're just acceptable losses. They're acceptable collateral damage. You know, like, Piers Morgan is such a Weasley little liar, dude. Like, he's like, oh, I'm not justifying that. They're unacceptable. Like, 5 minutes later, totally justifying that, finds it totally acceptable.
well, people on behalf of Israel.
Tell me one.
Public admit it.
Tell me one
Didn't
war.
they kill,
Tell me one war
didn't they
that
kill
has
Ismail Haniyeh without collateral damage?
Tell me one.
Hold on, didn't they kill Ismail Haniyeh in
Mehdi,
Tehran without
tell me one war where
I just
that's
told
happened.
you. You just interrupted me twice. Ismail Haniyeh was killed in Tehran. There was no collateral damage.
But to be
now, I don't agree with that killing,
right.
but there was no collateral
damage. But to
damage.
be clear, you think that the targeting of combatants is legitimate?
If you're in a war,
okay,
and they are fighting with you, and they are fighters, yeah, of course it's legitimate.
But you also think that when Israel targeted combat...
If you shoot a soldier, you have to find a civilian to shoot too. It's a rule. God, the humor for this time has gotten dark, hasn't it?
Combatants from Hezbollah last week,
because I don't accept
in a very
the premise
precise
of your,
way,
I don't accept the premise.
It's terrorism.
Yeah, I don't.
How can it be both?
Hold on, Leon.
Because you don't know who you're targeting, Piers. You're distributing bombs and then detonating them later. You don't know where those bombs are. Hence why they were bombed in, like, public spaces. He's so dumb. He's so dumb, and he's so dumb right now in this very moment for the dumbest possible reason. He's so dumb and evil. Why?
Panetta says it's terrorism, the former head of the CIA,
So?
not just me. Well, you act like it's some crazy extreme view. If the head of the CIA, the former head of the CIA is saying this is terrorism because it's
I want
not
you to
done...
explain what is... So give me an example.
It's literally terror. People in Lebanon don't know what devices to use anymore.
You think killing... Well, Hezbollah don't know
By the
what
way,
devices
I'm not playing this game, Piers, because
I mean, again, like... I know I don't have to, like, really get into this and detail it, but, like, the only reason this bomb scheme is being billed as, like, an acceptable thing to do is because it's Israel doing it. And because mainstream media is just so friendly to the nation of Israel. Like, if any other entity did that same military strategy, it would be rightly classified as terrorism. If the NYPD distributed phones to people they assumed were criminals that had explosives in them, and then just randomly detonated 3,000 explosives across New York City and said, well, it's worth it because, you know, these people were known criminals. And you, like, that would rightly be seen as terroristic in nature. If you did this with members of, like, the KKK in America, or like a neo-Nazi militia in America, it would also be seen as terrorism. Like, because you are just randomly distributing bombs and you have no idea where your targets are when you explode them, and that's assuming you got all of your targets right in the first place. Ugh.
I'm not here to talk about the rules of war. My position is, even if it's legitimate...
You just talked about them.
No, because I'm saying even if it's legitimate, even if I accepted the 3,000 is legitimate, which I don't, I still don't think they should do it.
But you said targeting...
Can I finish a sentence?
You said targeting militants, combatants, is lawful and justified.
Yes, but even then I don't think you should do it.
Okay.
You know what? Can I finish a sentence?
I think it's an...
What ratio of Hezbollah versus civilians is acceptable, and if the pagers did less collateral than conventional weapons, is the attack proportionate? I mean, I would argue that I don't know what the acceptable ratio is, but I would also argue that they are using conventional weapons and have been using conventional weapons for the past year. Hasn't proven particularly effective, and I think if you haven't been able to succeed by leveling apartment complexes with, you know, something like 82,000 bombs, rockets, missiles, etc., then maybe you shouldn't also be, like, doing the let's just randomly distribute bombs plan. I think those are all bad.
Consistency there.
No, I'm very consistent. I'm saying even if it's legitimate, which in this case it's not legitimate, let's say I take the saying it's legitimate, You still shouldn't do it because all it leads to is escalation. I don't want escalation in the Middle East. I don't want a regional war that America dragged into. I'm saying that the way of the gun, the military solution to everything, is a failure, whether you think it's moral or immoral.
How should Israel respond?
I've told you, end the occupation. You don't want to...
Yeah, I mean, like, again, when you have available to you the ability to negotiate, and that is going to be the best response that you can do, and instead you opt to bomb for over a year and assassinate leaders and do all kinds of stuff, you would have been much better served coming to the table at the beginning. Like, that's how you achieve peace, which to me indicates that peace was never the object of this particular interaction.
Talk about the occupation, Piers. You don't want to talk about the 500 dead. I'm telling you, that's the root cause. Israel wants to do everything except what every smart person is telling them to do. Even members of their own security establishment are telling them to do. End the occupation and then see what happens.
You say...
Nobody's waking up in the morning saying we want to kill Israel for no reason.
You say, Mehdi, all roads lead to the occupation.
Yes.
OK?
Yeah. All roads lead to the governing, power dynamic of the region. Yeah, weird.
Israel would say all roads lead to Iran.
Who cares what Israel says? They've lied for the last year. They've lied
Who cares
for 30
what they say?
Yeah, do you care what Russia says?
No.
This is what I'm saying.
Hey, Bleak WMD, like, can you chill? Like, you came into chat and immediately, like, picked a fight with almost everybody. And I don't really know why.
Inconsistent. The occupier and the invader doesn't... I don't care
it's not a barbaric
So if you're a liberal democracy... First of all, they're not a liberal democracy. And second of all...
Well, they are.
No, they're not. They're an ethnocracy. But even if they were a liberal democracy, you don't get to invade other people's land. That's not an excuse. Piers, you sound like you're justifying an illegal military occupation here.
No, I'm not.
You just did. You said they're a liberal democracy. Sounds like you're justifying occupation.
You're extrapolating two things together. Why?
I said it's an occupation. You said, but they're a liberal democracy. Sounds like a justification for
I'm just coming back to one thing, because I'm curious what you think Israel could do that would pass your test.
It's probably not much. I'm as close to a pacifist as you can get. I think you only use force to defend yourself.
Everyone else to attack you and to rape and murder and pillage you, to fire rockets all year.
Who's raping and
You don't think that's what Hamas did in October?
I thought we were talking about Hezbollah. You're jumping around.
I'm talking about both.
You were talking about Hezbollah a moment ago.
Well, it's the same. To me, it's the same.
But that's
Israel's
the problem.
But, like, Mehdi Assad spent the first, 10 minutes explaining to you how they're different. To me, they're the same, but they're not the same. They're literally two different religious groups in two different countries. Like, they have similarities, but let's be real. They are two very, very different groups of people.
Problem. To you, it's the same. Everything's very simplistic.
Let me explain why. Let me explain why. You have two.
Lebanon is way more complicated.
To me, you have two groups of terrorists funded by Iran. They both are wedded to the existential removal and disintegration of all things Israel, and they're prepared to use a lot of violence to achieve that.
But not as much violence as Israel has used to occupy their land for 50 years in the case of Gaza and the West Bank.
So your argument is whatever Hamas has done and whatever Hezbollah does is justified?
No. The only person justifying violence here is you, Piers, not me.
Yeah. Mehdi Assad has condemned Hamas so many times on Piers Morgan's show. How many more times will he need to do it? 10? 15?
So I've not justified any violence today. You've justified terrorist attacks via pages. You seem to have justified the occupation. You won't even say occupation.
I do think the specific targeting of Hezbollah in the way that they did it...
Do you think it makes Israel safer?
That's a different question.
Well, that's the question that matters to me.
I think Israel feels...
There's no point doing all this, and at the end of the day, the war continues. I want to end the conflict, Piers.
So, of course, maybe this is...
Well, then escalations don't help. Israel is briefing the press, Piers.
Just saying, I want peace and joy. You sound like Kamala Harris.
No, actually, Kamala Harris is funding Israel. She supports you, so that's the problem.
Doesn't support me.
She supports your position that Israel has a right to do this stuff. It doesn't have a right to do this stuff.
They have a right to do all of it. I've never said that.
Oh, you pick and choose which bits?
Yeah.
What do you think they have a right to do?
I think that they have been disproportionate in their response
That's very
to Gaza.
vague. What do you think they're allowed to do in Gaza? You made me very specific. What do you think they should specifically do in Gaza?
I think in Gaza that they were the victims on October the 7th.
You've already said that.
I know.
What should they do in Gaza?
So I think they are perfectly entitled to go after Hamas. What they're not entitled to do, in my estimation, is to level the whole of Gaza to the ground in the way they've been doing. Nor can they move vast numbers of Palestinian civilians to specific areas.
Those are war crimes.
And then bomb those areas as well.
And those are war crimes,
So on those
like Bleak WMD, why are you even bothering with this? Like, seriously, I can't believe I have to drop this sound clip.
Google debunkers.
You can literally just Google the occupied territories. The first result that comes up is the U.S. State Department. The occupied territories, which include the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip. That's the U.S. State Department. There we go. Problem solved. Thanks, Google debunkers.
Google debunkers.
And those are war crimes, yes?
Probably, yeah.
And what about in Lebanon?
In Lebanon,
They just killed 500 people.
there is, to me, a big difference.
50 children.
I'm about to answer you. I think there is a big difference between what they did in the targeting of the pages and what they did with the airstrikes, which were far more indiscriminate and killed far more civilians.
I mean,
and my question for Netanyahu, if he would dare to do an interview with me, which he now won't, but if he did, I would say, what are you trying
Why
to...
should you agree with the State Department, per se? Well, largely because we're the hegemonic power that props up Israel, so I think our definition of things matters a bit.
achieve here? Because it seems to me you're just levelling Gaza, killing tens of thousands of people in the process.
trying to stay in office.
You're never going to finish off Hamas completely. You're certainly not doing anything but, in my view, fueling their ideology. And you have no plan for what happens in Gaza afterwards.
Agreed.
And you have a bunch of right-wing nut jobs in your
We finally
cabinet who actually do speak in quite a genocidal way. All of that I agree
They
with.
are about Lebanon too, by the way. You know that, right? They're speaking about Lebanon in a genocidal way too.
I think there are...
Also, just as a side note, the International Court of Justice, the UN General Assembly, and the UN Security Council all regard Israel as the occupying power for the territories. All of the territories I just listed. So, there you go.
people there who just...
Again, this would be very easily solved with a Google debunker.
Google debunkers.
just want total war with everything to do with
Good night, Carla.
Palestinians.
But don't
and
you think someone
the
like you with
Hezbollah.
your huge platform should be calling that out consistently?
I do, but I also
No,
think...
you're always you just gave me a whole thing. Iran backs Hamas, Hezbollah, terrorism. That just sounds like an Israeli narrative.
You take one side completely.
Just like you do in Ukraine.
Again, Piers Morgan, you just choose how you feel on any given day with these issues. You don't have a consistent ideological framework, and that's kind of a problem when it comes to landing consistently on any issue.
No, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm consistent. I take the side of the Ukrainian people under occupation and the Palestinian people under occupation. I'm consistent.
No, you're not.
I am.
They're totally different
Well,
situations.
you have to say that because you're not consistent.
And you have to say what you say.
No, but I literally described it. 2 people's under foreign occupation, 2 people's having their hospitals bombed, 2 people's having their kids killed, 2 people facing governments that say genocidal stuff. Yeah, I'm consistent.
One is a democracy and an ally of the
Says
West,
you.
and one is
Oh,
not.
ally of the West. What little slip in there? What's that got to do with anything? So allies of the West get to be genocidal.
No.
Why did you say ally of the West? Why is that relevant?
I don't believe what they're doing in
So if
Gaza.
Russia was an ally of the
No,
West, they could
hang
kill
on.
people in Ukraine.
I don't believe what
Wow.
they're doing in Gaza is genocide. You do, I don't.
Well,
genocide is the complete
Put genocide to one side.
destruction of
Whether we
people.
agree or not on genocide, and it is genocidal.
It's not
You just
genocide.
said they're your ally of the West. Why is that relevant?
I think it's important that you support.
So if you're an
allies.
ally of the West, you get to kill kids.
No, you get
So
support.
why is it relevant?
You support.
You're making my point for me, Piers.
You
I'm
support-
consistent.
you support
I don't.
Yeah, like it really does kind of seem like if the tables were turned, Piers would have a different idea of geopolitics. It's kind of crazy. Honestly, Mehdi Hasan landed on an absolutely banger of an argument here to point out that Piers is incapable of having a consistent stance on this issue.
I don't care whether you're an ally
Mehdi,
of the West
Mehdi,
or an enemy of the West.
fine.
I care about what you do.
Yes.
And Russia and Israel both committing
Yes.
war crimes,
Yes.
both saying genocidal
Yes,
stuff.
but Mehdi, here's my point. You are so blindly anti-Israel that you frame everything.
I could say the same thing to you about
everything-
Russia.
I'm very blindly against Russia.
Okay,
yes.
then so again, so you're
Are you
inconsistent. I'm exactly. I'm consistent. I'm blindly anti-occupying Russia that occupies Ukraine, and I'm blindly anti an Israel that occupies Gaza. By the way, another area I'm consistent is I do think both wars need to come to an end, and they're going to come to an end through some sort of negotiation.
Mehdi, this is why you're the best. You can't You can't come to an end of a conflict without negotiation. The only way you come to the only way you come to peace after a conflict without any negotiation whatsoever is when you've killed the entirety of the other side.
I don't believe in prolonged conflict. I don't know. I'm not a negotiator. I don't believe there's a military solution to either conflict.
Give me the solution.
I don't have one. Do you have a military solution? I don't think there is one.
We can't possibly give Putin what he's taken.
No, I agree.
So how do you do it?
I don't know. But I don't think the military continuing helps. I mean, how do you win militarily? I don't know how that works.
Would you said that in World War II?
I mean, I would argue that the fighting needs to continue until Putin is willing to come to the table. When that might be, I don't know. But like that's I guess that's how it's got to be.
What do you mean?
When the Nazis were trying to take over the world?
No, there was a plausible plan to win, wasn't there? When the US came in?
Just to fight them.
And there were no nuclear weapons back then, Piers, as you know.
Okay, but you just think Putin would ever use them?
Do you not think he would use them?
No. Why would he? He's not an Islamic fundamentalist who wants to blow himself up.
Oh, that's a very racist thing to say.
It's not.
It absolutely is. Like, why would he? Yeah, because, you know, white people in the West famous for not wanting to kill themselves? Question mark? I don't know. Maybe Piers Morgan needs to look up what Hitler did in his bunker. I don't know. Like, fascism by its nature is like a national kind of version of suicide. It is a death cult movement. If you are heading up a fascist regime, that is where you're bound for. Like, you're ideologically bound to kill yourself. Like, that's what fascism does to you. And so, like, is Putin not willing to blow himself up? Well, his ideology says otherwise.
You're saying only Muslims want to use nuclear weapons?
I said
what?
Islamic.
Why would Putin not want to use?
I say Muslim. I said Islamic fundamentalists.
Why is it Islamic fundamentalists?
Because Islamic fundamentalists kill themselves to get what they want.
But they haven't used nukes. The only people who've used nukes in history are the United States of America.
You're missing my point deliberately.
Actually, no. That's a pretty good rebuttal on Hasan's part here. Like, yeah, famously, the only people to have used nukes were not Islamic fundamentalists, actually.
And you're playing
because I just find these
playing the race card stupidly.
You're playing weird asides, Piers. You're bringing in Western allies.
I mean, Piers Morgan's main trick is, like, trying to conceal whataboutism and gish galloping. Like, that's basically all he's done throughout this entire conversation.
About whether I thought Russia would use nukes. No, because
the only people who would are Islamic fundamentalists.
They do not behave.
Western
he does not think like an Islamic fundamentalist where they will kill themselves to get their goals.
You know the United States of America used a nuclear weapon, Piers, right? They're not Islamic fundamentalists.
You're missing my point. The point is Islamic fundamentalists will kill themselves in the process of destroying others.
Yeah, because, you know, Western countries have never done that before. Nope. Don't look too much into European history, okay, folks?
Russia does not want to do that. Vladimir Putin doesn't want to kill himself.
Fair point.
Right? So my point about the nuclear threats, which he does all the time, is he takes what should be a deterrent. Look, we shouldn't have nuclear weapons, right? Period. But we do. Russia has 6,000.
As does Israel.
Russia has 6. I'm sure they do. And I put that question to Netanyahu, and he fudged it. But I'm sure, of course, they do. Right? But the point is, I don't think that the mindset of someone like Vladimir Putin is to start a war where he gets instantly vaporized. Makes no sense to me. So I think he uses it as a threat, and a lot of people in the West go like this and go, oh my God, we can't do anything. We must let him continue what he's doing because he might nuke us. And I think he's been doing this now for years, and we've got to stand up to him because he's never going to use nuclear weapons because he knows the moment he does, Russia and him are dead. And he doesn't think in the way that Al-Qaeda or ISIS or one of these groups do, where they don't mind dying in big numbers to blow things up.
It's a very fair argument. I respect that argument.
That's my point.
That's a fair argument. I respect that argument. I'm saying I'm not willing to take that risk. I would like to see the Ukraine conflict come to an end.
So would I.
In Ukraine's favour.
Yeah, but how?
I don't know. I'm not pretending to know the solution.
With respect, and I do respect you, with respect, simply saying, I just want peace and harmony.
You
and
don't have a
everyone
solution
like
to
each
Ukraine
other.
either.
I do.
What is it?
Support them.
That's not a solution.
No, it is.
No, it is. What's the end goal?
You give them the tools that they're asking for to repel Russia long enough that Russia goes, all right, enough.
And there's nobody agrees that Russia's going to give up Crimea.
Also, just as an FYI, okay? Now, I am unsure about the veracity of the Kyiv Independent, okay? This is an outlet purportedly based out of Ukraine. Let's just see. Kyiv Independent. Okay. Okay, it's mostly crowdfunded. Okay, neat. This is the current state of Russia's military, according to the general staff. Russia has lost 654,430 troops in Ukraine since February 24th, 2022. If you're not in like a death cult mentality, throwing over 500,000 troops into a grinder doesn't fly. That's insane. This number includes 1,370 Russian casualties suffered just over the past day. Like, it's a death cult mentality, guys.
No one's ever going to.
I didn't say Crimea.
That's part of Ukraine. You said don't give up any Ukrainian territory.
Crimea, to me, has already been sorted. I'm talking about the... Well, I don't think anything they can do about
good.
that.
Well, we agree on that then.
But I do think that the area of the Donbass...
Yes. But they've been annexed as well, unfortunately.
They should not be allowed to take that as well. If they do, they'll never stop.
I agree with that. I don't think they should be allowed to take it, but I don't see a military solution. But I'm not a military expert.
Like, to put that into perspective, guys, their entire military size is around 1.5 million. That's like a third of their armed forces.
But what people I read say there's no way the Russians.
What do you think is the
thank
solution?
you for the raid. Welcome, folks.
In the Middle East with Israel, I get the argument: give up occupation. Okay,
yes.
All right, on that we agree. Okay, but Israel will only do that, and this has the vast support of their people. They'll only do this if they feel that they can get security out of the situation. They'll only allow a two-state solution. I mean, do you believe in a two-state solution?
I don't believe in any solutions, right? I don't talk about one state, two states, three states, because all of it is nonsense. All of it is pie in the sky. None of it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, this is good. This is a good point. Like, I genuinely, there's no path right now under the current Netanyahu. But even if you replace Netanyahu with someone else from Likud, there's no pathway forward for like a one-state solution. There might be a pathway towards a two-state solution, but that would require like Israel to come to the table and make some serious concessions that no politician in Israel is going to make. So like there isn't really a path forward for any of this. The people who are telling you that there is a path forward are largely people in the Biden administration who are hopelessly out of touch and very naive.
My position is I want equality for Palestinians and Israelis,
Piers
Jews,
Morgan
Muslims, Christians living in that part of the world.
Exactly the same human rights for all.
Exactly.
On that, I agree with you.
I don't care about the structures. I don't care what the name of the place is, what the government looks like. I want equality between the river and the sea, to use a phrase, for everyone living in that patch of land. No one's leaving. I don't believe any of those people are going anywhere. They're all staying. They all have to live side by side as equals. I'm a Democrat, small d Democrat. I believe it should be a democracy. But fundamentally, right now, I'm only concerned about one thing: stop the killing, stop the genocide.
Do you agree that Hamas could play no part in any government going forward?
Which government?
on the Palestinian side.
Like in a final settlement?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think there would ever be a final settlement government. I don't think anyone would agree to that. I agree. Yes.
So
if there was a kind of one-state solution, which some people talk about, which is everyone binationally living side by side, of course not. If there's two states and the Palestinians were to choose a coalition government involving Hamas, well, that's up to the Palestinians, is it not?
let's go to something else. I think we're in fun agreement. The Al Jazeera raid, because you work for Al Jazeera. I thought that was disgraceful. And I think actually, when you take it in the context of what Israel's been doing in really prohibiting almost any foreign correspondence going into Gaza as well, you're seeing a genuine suppression of media and press freedom. And to actually shut down Al Jazeera studio in Ramallah, I thought was an absolutely outrageous attack on free speech. I mean, I presume you agree.
100%.
And
it's outrageous that there's no foreign journalists allowed into Gaza a year in.
Yeah.
What do they have to hide?
Well, exactly. That's my point. That is my point. I totally agree with you.
But that's why I say when you say liberal democracy, I laugh. That's not how a liberal democracy behaves.
Well, no liberal democracy is perfect.
Well, no liberal democracy is perfect, says Piers Morgan about a blatantly anti-democratic nation.
We're not here, as you and I would agree about, for example.
But there's a difference between a liberal democracy not meeting standards and behaving in this way, which is complete censorship. You see what's happening in Israel, where kids are being pulled out of school just for criticizing what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah, like the story he's mentioning here was a 13-year-old girl who was suspended from school after in class she mentioned that children in Gaza also go hungry. And after class, she was beaten, berated, and mocked by her classmates. And then she was suspended by the school. Not the people who beat her, she was.
Head teachers, academics. It's not liberal democracy in any way. Separately, going back years, the way Israel is constructed, Palestinians do not have the same rights as Israel.
Who would be a better president for resolving what's happening in the Middle East, Trump or Harris?
Oof. That's the hardest question you asked me today, harder than anything else.
I know. So I've seen what you said about it.
I think they're both hopeless. I think John Mearsheimer made a good point about Tweedledee and Tweedledum on the Middle East.
But one of them is going to have to win.
Yeah, who do I think is less bad? They're both horrible on this story.
That's a different question.
I do think that I do think that Kamala Harris is not given enough credit for potentially being better on this issue. Granted, I also don't think that if she was better on this issue, she could come out and say it right now as in her capacity as vice president, in her position kind of needing the support of mainstream Democrats. I don't think she could come out and hard on this issue. I do think that she could be moved more effectively, even if she was just as bad as Biden on this issue. And I just don't believe she's ideologically married to the same position that Biden is. So that's my calculation. You guys have heard me make the argument before. So I'm a little bit more optimistic than Mehdi on this, but only a little bit.
Well, they're both horrible.
I phrased it very specifically, so you'd find it hard to answer.
I know, so go on, can you say it again?
The question is, which one is more likely to be able to help resolve the Middle East crisis?
Okay, so...
Trump or Harris?
Oh, Harris, simply because she's a sane, reasonable person. But I don't believe she will resolve it. I'm going to add the caveat. I'm not saying there's going to be some two-state solution in a Harris term, no. But is she more likely? If you're asking me as a betting man, I'm a Muslim, I don't bet. But is she more likely? Yeah, Harris. Obviously, she's more likely to do anything productive because he's the most unproductive, ridiculous figure to ever come near higher office in the history of America.
He's had 2 assassination attempts on his life. The second one, who obviously is still alive, he wrote a note, assuming he might get killed in the process of killing Trump, in which he basically rattled off a series of Democrat talking points. I mean, literally word for word in some cases from what Harris has said and so on. I'm not blaming Kamala Harris for what happened. He's a lunatic. He's a lunatic.
And he invited Kim Jong-un to Hawaii.
Right, and the Secret Service should have stopped him way before he ever got to where he got to.
And Trump shouldn't be playing so much golf as well.
Well, actually, he plays as much golf as Obama.
The Secret Service have asked him to reduce it because it is a security
risk. Because they can't protect him.
Yeah.
Which is disgusting,
and I'm not
in my opinion.
The Secret Service.
But
it's disgusting that he can't play more golf. Is kind of an insane take, but okay.
When you see somebody using specific talking points and you see the rhetoric being used, we've had the debate before.
I mean, I would argue that if you have someone in the bushes with a rifle trained on him, about to pull the trigger, I would say that is an attempt. I don't think I think if you have gone through the trouble of putting a sniping position together and have an actual gun there, I do think that qualifies as an attempt, even if you don't fire a shot, you know?
About the left calling him Hitler and so on. But I do genuinely...
Not the left. J.D. Vance called him Hitler, his running mate.
I accepted that point.
Good.
But no one should. In my estimation, likening Trump to someone who killed 12 million people in World War II is ridiculous and dangerous and in the wrong...
His rhetoric is identical, Piers. His rhetoric is absolutely identical. He literally just today called for a second Kristallnacht. Not with those words, but we just need a violent day. To purge the city from crime. Well, guess who the criminals were largely considered to be in Nazi Germany? You know, it might not be the Jews in America that Donald Trump is targeting here, but it's definitely a group of people. Predominantly black and brown. He's advocating the largest ethnic cleansing in modern American history. Something that would require the building of concentration camps by its very nature. That would require rail infrastructure. That would be extremely expensive to run. He would have unlimited and unchecked power that has been granted to him by the Supreme Court. There is literally no fail-safe that would prevent him from looking at the numbers and be like, oh man, it costs how much to deport these people? Let's just kill them. There's literally no guardrails that would prevent him from doing that. None whatsoever. He has an entire plan crafted for him by the country's elite Republican donors, filtered through the Heritage Foundation, that would put yes men at his beck and call and undo any potential blocks to anything he might want to do. So, like, is it ridiculous when all of the infrastructure is laid out before you to be like, hey, they're going to build a train station here, when literally all of the building blocks are in place, the blueprints are in front of you, the foreman is giving orders to the people about to start work for the day? Is that really like a crazy conclusion to come to? No.
Dangerous minds, lunatic minds, this is where you end up. On both sides, Trump's rhetoric is often
horrific.
Terrible, let's agree with that. But as someone on the left yourself, do you not think that there has to be a dialing down of the blind hatred rhetoric about Trump?
So I'm going to say the same thing I said to you last time, which is, I wish we didn't have to raise the rhetoric. I agree with you to a point that if you say certain things about certain people, of course I do. I'm on the left. I think if you dehumanize people, I'm the one who says migrant attacks because of Trump's rhetoric. So I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say that rhetoric leads to things. Yes, of course it does. I'm not one of these free speech absolutely says, words have no feeling, sticks and so. No, words lead to actions, words lead to violence, clearly. So yes, in any scenario where we can dial down any incitement of violence, completely agree. I get very uncomfortable, for example, at now Democratic rallies, people are shouting, lock him up, which I don't agree with. Right?
Well, it's total hypocrisy.
It's hypocrisy. Put him, he's on trial. If he's going to be locked up, let a court and a jury do it. I don't think crowds should be shouting that. It's not a helpful contribution.
Do you feel comfortable?
That makes me wince.
He's a convicted criminal because of a one-night alleged one-night stand with a porn star.
That's not why.
Did you feel comfortable?
No, he's convicted of all of those counts because he defrauded the government that many times. Has nothing to do with the porn star. Has to do with the fraud. You can sleep with a porn star. That's perfectly legal.
Comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with the trial that Alvin Bragg done. I'm comfortable with the grand jury that indicted him. I'm comfortable with the jury of his peers that convicted him. But
you can't be comfortable.
And I'm actually, what I'm uncomfortable with is that a bunch of his own judges now are protecting him from justice elsewhere. That makes America look like a quote-unquote banana republic. You and I live in the UK. You don't get to go pick your own judge.
I actually thought the way that the
Florida thing is ridiculous.
I thought the way the Democrats weaponized the justice system to go after Trump.
I wish they had. They didn't actually. They spent years dragging their feet.
They made
Merrick Garland was the most useless AG.
They made him a convicted criminal over a one-night stand.
they
with a
did not
porn
make
star
anything. A jury,
18 years before.
a jury of his peers
Should
made
never
him.
have been put to a jury.
Let me answer your original question about violence, but since we sidetracked, a jury of his peers convicted him. Back to this.
A jury of his peers. You should know about that, Piers. We could call on you someday.
On the rhetoric, I wish I didn't have to compare Donald Trump to Hitler. But when he quotes the lines from Mein Kampf, as a journalist...
Come on, Mehdi.
As a journalist, should I not point out that?
You shouldn't compare him to Hitler because he's not Hitler.
Okay, so what should I do? So I'm a journalist. Donald Trump says immigrants are poisoning...
Okay, he has fascist rhetoric. He has fascist rhetoric that mirrors that of Hitler. Is that better?
Our blood. I go look in history who's the only person who said that, Hitler. Should I not tell my viewers on Piers Morgan Uncensored? Should I go, can't tell them that?
No, you can say you can say he shouldn't use language like that.
Can I say he's quoting Adolf Hitler?
You can't
You should say he should not use language like that without explaining why.
say he's the new Hitler.
I haven't called him the new Hitler.
Right.
I've never called him the new Hitler.
So you accept the people who
but
say
I'm allowed.
that.
But you say I'm allowed to say he's quoting Hitler.
You can, if he uses a direct sentence, which you can chart back to
It's
what came out of
almost
Hitler's mouth,
directly the same,
That's
yes.
absolutely fair enough. But the idea that there is any comparison between Trump
No,
and
of course not. Hitler is Hitler. We know that.
Is appalling.
Hitler is Hitler.
Do you agree it's appalling?
No, but I want to qualify what you're saying. Hitler,
You agree it's appalling?
What is appalling?
To compare him to Hitler.
I don't think that it is, actually. I think that it is perfectly fine to compare Donald Trump to Hitler because he's very bad. He is that level of bad. Like, let me pull up the clip again. It's just 50 seconds, okay? Yeah, I do think that the guy advocating for extrajudicial violence is bad and evil. Actually, I do actually think
the
that.
liberal left wants to destroy him, and they want to destroy our country. You know, if you had one day, like one real rough, nasty day with the drugstores as an example, but they have to be taught. Now, if you had one really violent...
Well, Bleak WMD, obviously anyone who thinks that you're saying he's literally Hitler is too stupid to be reasoned with.
Day, like a guy like Mike Kelly, put him in charge. Congressman Kelly, put him in charge for one day. Mike, would you say, he's right here, it's a chain of events that's so bad. One rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately. End immediately.
I mean, again, this is just advocacy for like a crystal knocked like event.
You know, it'll end immediately. Crooked Joe Biden do it because the liberal left.
Oh God. Well, Wargamer Lena, you can definitely join the Discord. Just, you know, put discussion in appropriate places. Obviously, people in like the gaming chat don't necessarily want to talk about religion, but plenty of people in the Discord are weird. God.
To compare him to Hitler, in what sense, though?
They're calling him the new Hitler.
Yeah, so no, don't call him the new Hitler.
Is that appalling?
Oh my God, I'm not playing the silly game.
I don't think it's appalling, no.
Give me a word.
I don't want you put your words
Give
about.
me a condemnatory word.
I think it's not accurate to say he's the new Hitler because Hitler killed
Not
12 million
accurate.
people. Yeah, it's not true.
Not offensive.
But if you let me finish the sentence, I speak to a lot of fascism scholars, people like Ruth Ben-Ghiat, Jason Stanley. A lot of people say that there is an analogy between what Trump is doing in America now and what happened in places like Germany in the 20s and 30s.
No, there
right?
isn't.
I respect your
example.
opinion. I respect your opinion that you don't think it is.
Well, give me an example.
I'm not having that argument right now. I'm trying to make a separate point, which is if fascism scholars are saying, we look at history and we make comparisons, they are scholars of fascism and they're saying, hey, hold on, the rhetoric is very similar. The
Yeah, he uses fascist rhetoric. Exactly.
way they're operating is very similar. That is it. That first of all, free speech. They should be allowed to say that.
You said Trump
used to be the free speech champion.
I am.
And then you sit there regulating everyone's speech.
I'm not
Say it's
regulating.
appalling.
I'm not regulating. No, I'm asking
you. literally just told me. Call it appalling.
That's not regulating what you're saying.
You're
it's
telling me-
asking you, can you bring it in yourself to condemn people who say he's the new Hitler?
Maybe Trump is more of a Franco than a Hitler. Would that be better? No.
I don't know who those people are. J.D. Vance called him the new Hitler, and he's his running mate. So take it up with J.D. Vance.
Condemn him as well.
Call him on your show.
But you condemn anyone on the left who uses it too, right?
Uses what, though?
Who says he's the new Hitler? Specifically.
Those specific words, the new
Yes.
Hitler, yes.
Okay.
Is he speaking like Hitler? Yes, he is.
Okay.
And that should be condemned. Hold on, do you condemn him speaking like Hitler?
Yes.
Does that not outrage you?
Of course.
He's like your pal. Why don't you tell him to stop it?
Of course.
Have you ever told him to stop quoting Hitler?
Yes, probably. I can't remember the last...
Probably. What, did that not, if you did it not stand out? Do you have to do that so often with your friends, Piers, that you just forget? Man, I told 5 people to stop talking like Hitler last week. Like, come on, Piers.
last interview I did was before or after, but if I do again, I will. Yes, of course.
Good. And hosting a Holocaust dinner at Mar-a-Lago.
But yes, Nick Fuentes, absolutely.
Have you told him to stop doing that?
I said it on Twitter to him. Don't let white supremacists
But I would never say it at a dinner party. That'd be uncouth.
anywhere near you. Why are you doing that?
No, that's not condemnation. That's a question.
I think
you
it's
should condemn it.
Condemn it. It's disgusting.
It's appalling.
It's appalling.
Good.
There you
We're in
are.
agreement.
You're
I
trying to
love when we
regulate my
agree.
speech.
I love when we agree.
You said that Trump called for the ethnic cleansing of legal immigrants in the United States. No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
What did he say?
He said he wanted to deport illegal immigrants.
No, he didn't, actually.
Yes, he did.
Piers, you're wrong.
That's what he
Again,
said.
anyone can play the tape after this interview. You're wrong. You should do better homework.
Ethnic
when
cleansing is the forced expulsion,
I love your team.
usually involving killing of members of a specific religious or ethnic group.
Hold on.
That's what ethnic cleansing
I really
is.
like your team. I deal with them a lot when I come in there. But you should talk to whoever did your research, because that's wrong. You know what he said? Go watch the clip. It's on tape.
Could you elaborate on the Franco answer? Like, why is he more like Hitler than Franco or Mussolini? Well, largely because, again, his rhetoric is more like Hitler's rhetoric or more like Mussolini's rhetoric than it was Franco's rhetoric. Franco wanted to restore the monarchy of Spain, which is what he wound up doing, by the way, only for the Spanish monarchy to basically be like, lol, we don't want to be like in charge of the government anymore. We're making the country a democracy. Like, that's basically how that happened, right? Donald Trump is currently advocating for one of the largest mass deportations in American history. That requires, like, infrastructure, that requires an amount of effort and movement of resources that would create, frankly, concentration camps of millions of people. Millions of people. On a scale that Franco did not operate on. Now, a lot of bad things happened under Franco, but that's not what Donald Trump is proposing. Donald Trump is not proposing to restore a monarchy to the United States. He's not running on any of these things. He's doing it simply because he's a fascist. He hates black and brown people. He wants to use his power against them when he gets into a position of power. And anyone who is convenient for him to throw under the bus while he ascends to power again is an acceptable loss. Like, Franco had a lot of really key differences. Does that make sense? What about when it comes to policy? How do Trump's policies compare with other fascists? Well, again, largely analogous to Hitler. Because I want to ask you something. What policies are you aware of that Donald Trump has? Anyone? Anyone? What are Donald Trump's policies? Trans bad, the wall, 20% tariff on all imported goods, deport 20,000 migrants. No. He's said millions. Deport millions. Tariff protectionism. Handouts to friendly businesses. and the upper class. You've got all kinds of promises to deport migrants, immigrants, black and brown people, kill criminals.
I believe all the things of the way of the shimp and his pals. Shimp rhetoric. Is it appalling to compare me to the shimp?
Hannah, thank you for the £5. Is it appalling to compare me to the shimp? Never. Shimp are wonderful. And you know what? Shimpin' ain't easy. Thank you for the £5 dono. Get ourselves another count on the board here.
He said, we've got to get rid of them from Springfield.
Yeah.
Who are the people in Springfield? Haitians. They are not illegal immigrants.
So it's interesting, Springfield.
Hold on, no, don't jump
Oh, God.
around. You just got something wrong.
I'm going to mention I didn't get it wrong.
No, you did. We could play the tape back. He said illegal immigrants. That's not true. He said Haitians should be... You've got to get rid of them.
You said, Mehdi, let me just go back
No, you said...
Hang on, let me clarify what you said.
Please clarify what you said.
You said his policy is
Piers Morgan carries so much water for Trump. It's really pathetic.
calling for the ethnic
I didn't say
cleansing.
policy. It's a phrase on Twitter. If you're going to come and police my tweets, then fine.
Well, you said that Trump has called for the ethnic cleansing
Yes,
of legal immigrants.
the violent, forcible removal of legal immigrants, I think, is a form of ethnic cleansing.
That's not his position.
But
his position is that there should be mass deportation of illegal
Wrong. The clip is online. Everybody,
You're
I don't know what camera
conflating
to look
different
at.
things.
No, you are, because my tweet was over that clip. So anyone can go look, and you guys got it wrong. I looked at a clip of him saying, you got to get rid of them in Springfield.
Different story. Different thing.
But that's what I'm tweeting about, Piers. You don't get to misrepresent
what he's talking about with the mass deportation.
Yes, he is. He was talking about Springfield.
No,
he said
wasn't.
Springfield.
No, he talked...
Have you watched the clip?
No, he's been talking about not just illegal, undocumented immigrants. He's talking about any kind of immigrant. Any kind. Like, it's crazy. Honestly, Idi Amin, i.e. Africa's hit lure. I don't know what that means. But thank you for the $2 super chat, Brutus Magnuson.
Yes, I've watched many clips of all of
but
it.
the clip that my tweet is on.
Well, you're
wrong, Piers. I get it. You can back down
So you
and
think
say
he
you got
wants
it wrong.
ethnic cleansing of Haitians in Springfield?
What he wants, I don't try and get inside a man.
Oh, Africa's Hitler. Gotcha.
You call that ethnic cleansing?
I'm not. If he tries to violently
I think he wants to kill...
Yeah, Idi Amin is a bad man.
Can I finish a sentence? If he wants to violently remove legal immigrants from their homes, yeah, I think that's a form of ethnic cleansing, yes. Based on their ethnicity or identity, 100%.
Do you think it's right in Springfield?
Do you think it's right to call for the deportation of legal immigrants? No, you cut me off.
It's actually... It is technically my show.
And you misrepresented my tweet, which you haven't corrected yet. My tweet was in reference to legal immigrants. You said illegal. So you should walk that back. You said it to all your viewers. That was wrong.
But you said that he effectively has a policy.
No, I said, no, Piers, don't misrepresent
Is it a policy or
I
not?
said, in this clip, he's calling for the ethnic cleansing. It's a quote above a clip. It's a quote tweet. You should check your tweets when you put them in your document.
Do you think that's what he's doing, though? Ethnically cleansing?
Yes, if he's calling for the deportation of legal immigrants based on their ethnicity, yes.
Yeah. This isn't difficult. I feel like Mehdi Hasan has the patience of a saint because I'd be losing it, dog. I'd be losing it, bro. Like, oh, well, he's only talking about illegal immigrants. Is he, though? Isn't it weird how this man who, you know, was brought up on charges for not renting apartments to black and brown people 50 years ago, is it really that weird that maybe he, you know, might still be racist? I don't know. But Piers Morgan would say, but he has many black friends. I don't know. I'm just going off of his proposed policies here.
Do you think he's called it a bloody operation? Are you okay with 14 million people being violently removed from their homes?
Are you?
4 million American children losing
let me
their
ask
parents?
you a question.
It's outrageous.
Are you okay with the situation on the southern border with so many illegal people coming in illegally?
No, I'm not.
So presumably you're a legal migrant to America.
Yes, I am.
Right, so everyone has gone through the process like you.
But whether you're
Aren't they
legal or
entitled-
undocumented, you shouldn't be violently removed. And by the way, the southern border situation is a very complicated situation. It's been going on for years. Multiple presidents, multiple
I mean, okay, this might be one of my faults. I don't view the southern border situation as really being that complicated to solve. Like, if you want to solve this problem, fund the bureaucracy. Fund the bureaucracy so that it can actually process the number of people who are trying to come in. Fund the border bureaucracy so that we can actually process, so that it doesn't take years and years and years for people to have, like, their day in court about asylum claims. You know? And if you, that's the main bottleneck to all of this. But then more people would enter the country, yeah, it'd be great. You know? Make it easier to have, like, a migrant visa to, like, come across the border to do work for the day or for the week. You know, like, make that process easier. And you can do that by just funding the bureaucracy. Make it easier so that we can process asylum claims. Make it easier, and the problem basically goes away. Also, as someone who's lived with illegal immigrants and been married to one, being undocumented is a nightmare, and becoming naturalized takes years and can be risky. Hell, getting on an airplane is a serious risk. Exactly! Like, it sucks. Give people a pathway to citizenship. They'll take it. It sucks. You don't get any benefit from the tax. You get marginal benefits from the taxes you pay. But you don't get anywhere near, like, full benefits. You have to live on your toes all the time. Give them a pathway to citizenship. Fund the bureaucracy on the border. And there you go. You've solved the problem.
Parties. There's no easy
But you would
fix.
concede under the Democrats it's been a fiasco.
No. Why
Come
would I
on.
concede that?
Really? The numbers in the last 3.5 years?
And they were really bad under George Bush, if we go back. I mean, it's
Who
a
was the
multi-party.
biggest-
It's a multi. To make this into a party thing is ridiculous. In fact, last time I came on your show, you tried to do a gotcha on me and said Obama was the deporter.
Yeah, he was.
So clearly, Democrats aren't bad. They're on your side. They're deporters.
On that,
You can't have it both ways.
Interesting you
Piers.
raise the Obama thing.
You can't have it both ways, can you?
When Obama deported 3 million migrants, presumably then, was he ethnically cleansing them?
If they were undocumented, that's very different, isn't it? You're legally... Look, again, to go back to our discussion about Israel-Hamas...
So is ethnic cleansing if Trump's doing
Now
it?
who's cutting me off?
If
Something can be legal...
If Trump's doing it, it's ethnic cleansing.
No.
If Obama's doing it, it's perfectly okay.
I'm well known for speaking a lot. I can say my own words. You don't need to put words in my mouth. I'm saying, what I said earlier about Israel, you can do something that's legal, but I still think it's wrong. So what Obama did was legal, right? He didn't break any laws. He was entitled to deport, but I thought it was wrong, unwise, unhelpful, counterproductive, unfair. That's a different argument. What Trump would be doing is taking people who are here legally and suggesting that they get out. You know, when they go after 14 million people, Piers, you're a very experienced journalist, you've covered many political issues around the world. There's no scenario in which the American bureaucracy goes house to house to look for 14 million people and doesn't end up getting innocent people, green card holders, legal immigrants, just people who look brown or have a Spanish name and getting them as well. You know this.
Oh, thank you, Hannah. Thank you for the £2. I've been working out. I feel like I can kind of look good in this dress now, which is really nice. Thank you for the compliment.
It's going to be a disaster, Piers. So next time you talk to your pals, tell them not to do it.
On Springfield, do you think it's...
I think what happened in Springfield is outrageous. If you condemn the incitement of violence there by Trump. New Hitler. He shut down an entire town, 30 bomb threats.
Actually,
it's disgusting.
There weren't 30 bomb threats.
That's what
and it turned out
that's what the local authorities
all the
said.
bomb threats, all of them, came from what they now believe were bots and pranksters. And all of them. And nothing to do with Trump.
Nothing.
Oh, well, they were just bots and pranksters. Well, okay. You can't attribute any kind of ideological bent to bots and pranksters. Of course not.
Trump.
Xavier
So why did it happen? Why did it happen straight
They
after
were
he spoke?
literally, the mayor has said, actually, it turned out these were not
You know what the mayor
inspired
said?
by-
You know what the mayor
This
said?
was a-
He said Trump's words are harming us. That's what he said. He's harming our
I'll
community.
tell you what does harm
Why
me.
don't you condemn that, Piers?
Can I please ask you a question about Springfield? I have condemned the ridiculous Haitian migrants reading cats and dogs without any evidence.
It's not just ridiculous,
Right?
dangerous.
It's wrong. There is a wider and more interesting and nuanced debate to be had, which unfortunately got completely destroyed by the cats and dogs bullshit. Which is
racist idiot.
this. When you put into a place like Springfield, I had this with Vivek Ramaswamy, who's from that area. Yeah. When you suddenly change the makeup of that town by putting 20% of the entire population becomes one community.
They invited the immigrants to Springfield because their town was dying. This isn't a difficult topic. They literally invited and welcomed the immigrants into their community on purpose because they needed to revitalize their manufacturing labor base because the town was dying and all of the kids were leaving town. Like, this isn't difficult.
In Haitians in that case. I've seen lots of people in the area say the Haitians have been great for working and economy and so on. Great. But it also brings with it, as we've seen in the UK, when you radically change the makeup of towns, it can have a real effect on...
Like, this is from a week ago. Man, why they gotta threaten the kids? Under the national spotlight, Springfield schools cower. Like, they're... This is from a week ago. It's been going on for multiple weeks. And Piers Morgan, by the way, is trying to sidestep this by saying, oh, well, they were just pranksters. Those pranksters kept the entire city in fear for weeks. It doesn't matter that they didn't actually plant bombs, though, let's be clear on that one. If they had, Piers Morgan isn't really guaranteed to have acknowledged that as an act of terrorism. Just throwing that out there. We've learned that in this conversation, haven't we?
What that town is for people, on the effect on infrastructure, on the effect on schools and hospitals, etc., etc. Do you accept that this has to be handled carefully?
Yes.
And that actually putting 20% of the population into somewhere like Springfield inherently is a very tricky scenario.
So this is what worries me about you, Piers, because you ask good questions, you have these important discussions, but the framing, and my friend Brian Tyler Cohen said this to you a couple of days ago, your framing is very right-wing.
Why?
So when you say,
Why is it right-wing?
I'm telling you. You said twice there. They put 20,000. Who put them? Nobody put 20,000 people there. They went there voluntarily. They went there at the invitation of the local town. Do you know?
Bingo! Thank you for bringing that up, Mehdi.
The local town put an ad in a paper saying, please come to our town. It's in decline. We need labour. And they went and they helped the town. And the local factory managers and the local mayor of all, as you say, they've all come out and praised them. I actually find uncomfortable that rhetoric because I think immigrants should be valued regardless whether they're hard
True.
workers. But look, people have come and said they're hard workers. They attend the local church. They're integrated in the town. There hasn't been a crime wave associated with it. When J.D. Vance uses, and here we go, Nazi-like rhetoric and says they're bringing disease, which is what Die Stürmer used to say about Jewish people, yeah, I find that horrible. And who put 20,000 people? Nobody put 20,000 people there. They went there for jobs. Does that cause unease? I'm sure it does. Does it?
Does it affect the housing? Sure. But you know what? You know what helps people get over all of that? Getting to know their neighbors. That's what helps. Like, if they just go and learn and interact in the community. The government was already, like, putting forward funds to, like, give them, like, learning programs to help them integrate better into the community. Like, housing prices are going to, like, level out. That mainly just suddenly they had an influx of a lot of people. That's going to affect housing in a certain way. And, like, people there are going to like them. Like they're highly motivated to be like good workers, good neighbors, good friends. Like, these are growing pains that a community can very easily get over. Like, to me, it's unbearably, unequivocally racist to just say, well, you know, they're going to cause problems because they're a different race. I don't know, Piers, would you be saying that if, like, if the United States had taken in, like, 10,000 Canadians? You know, I don't know why they'd be coming down from Canada, but, like, for the sake of argument, I don't think that would be a story for Piers Morgan. And I don't think any right-wing outlet would complain about a sudden influx of Canadians. This is just racism.
Does it radically transform a neighborhood? I'm sure it does. Should the federal government and state government be helping communities that are dealing with migrant influx? Of course they should. I'm on the left, Piers. I want higher taxes, more government spending. You're going after the wrong guy. I want more infrastructure.
Actually, I wasn't going after you. I was just asking you.
No, we agree.
Exactly.
You and I both agree there should be better infrastructure. The federal government should support these areas.
And better help with the integration process. Because I think often that's where the real problems start.
Agreed. But both ways, right? Integration, as David Cameron once said, is a two-way street.
Yeah.
You don't want racists repelling new people, and you want new people understanding the ways of the world.
Yes.
Agreed. But what you don't want is a presidential candidate going on TV and just making up insane stories about immigrants eating. It disqualifies you from the race. I don't know how you went on and on about Joe Biden's age and dementia, and yet you have, you know, here's a guy who went on TV. If Joe Biden had got on TV and said people eating your pets, you would have condemned him straight away.
I condemned Trump straight away.
No, you would have said get out of the race. You haven't said Trump should get out of the race. Say it now. Say Trump, get out of the race. You're too old and nuts and
I don't believe he should get out of the race.
Why? He just said eating pets. If Rishi Sunak had said that, or Keir Starmer, we would all said get out of the race. But in America, for some reason, we give Trump a pass. We grade him on a curve.
What about?
He's so right. You know, like, we play the softest hands with Trump. The softest little hands with Trump. And, like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Why does he get a pass on being one of the biggest morons to ever run for president?
Like a man-child.
What about when Kamala Harris deliberately misquotes him and tries to pretend that he said if he doesn't win there'll be a bloodbath? When everybody
he did say bloodbath.
When everybody knows he was specifically talking about a bloodbath in the automobile industry.
Well, he was. I don't have time to get into all that. I don't agree with that. But just on your wider premise of Harris, even if I accept that she misquoted him, you and I both know there's normal politics where politicians lie, exaggerate, do hyperbole, do gotchas. We all know everyone does that. Democrats, Republicans, Labour, Conservative. You know that's not the same thing as a old man going on stage and screaming at the audience, they're eating your pets. Yeah. There's no comparison.
I agree.
There's no comparison. There's nothing like that from Harris, Biden, Starmer, Sunak, anyone.
But I also think it's far worse to say he's the new Hitler.
Did Kamala Harris?
Oh, God. The civility politics of Piers Morgan baffle me, man. I'm so glad we're 2 minutes from the end of this because I'm getting so tired of it. It's so infuriating.
Harris says the new Hitler.
No, but a lot of Democratic politicians have used that language.
What about Trump's language?
What you're saying
hold on, what about Trump's language?
Does that make it disqualifying for them as well?
No, okay, hold on. Yes. Okay,
any Democrat politician that says the new Hitler,
hold on.
Disqualified.
Hold on.
They're kicked out of
Hold on, I'm about to answer your question. Agree. Do you believe that a presidential candidate should not call the other person a Hitler?
Yeah.
Okay,
including
so
that.
Trump has called Kamala Harris a fascist, communist, Marxist. Harris has not called Trump a fascist, as far as I'm aware. I wish she would. But
I think she has, actually.
I don't think she has, but she hasn't since she became the candidate. So the person who's doing the incendiary rhetoric is Trump. He called Biden the Gestapo. Do you agree with that? Do you think Biden is the Gestapo?
No.
Well, that's what he called Biden. He said it's a Gestapo.
That's so weird that Piers hasn't condemned Donald Trump for, implying that Joe Biden is Hitler. Oh, man. Why? Piers, why?
Gestapo administration. I didn't hear you condemn Trump for that.
No, but I do know that there have been 2 attempts on one of the candidates' lives.
No, okay. So the rhetoric is fine until there's an assassination attempt, and then it's not fine? So does Donald Trump have just a pass to say anything and everything, unless there's an assassination attempt on like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris? That's an insane standard to have. Oh yeah, Mr. Anderson, Piers Morgan is absolutely like flying in the same flock as every member of Stormfront, you know?
Both times
You don't know how many. You don't know what's going on with Harris or what's going to happen. She's a black woman. You don't think there's going to be death threats against Kamala Harris?
There have been no attempts on her life.
You don't think?
Are you aware of any attempts on her life?
I don't know. I'm not saying I don't know. We didn't know. Hold on. We didn't know about many death threats against Obama till very recently.
The threats is one thing. Actually trying to kill somebody.
They arrested someone just the other day, for death threats against, I think, Biden or Harris. I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's not be. Come on, Piers. There's death threats.
Who's going to win the election?
I have no idea.
Who do you think?
I don't do predictions.
Really?
No, not after Brexit and Trump. In 2016, I got both wrong. So
you accept you're the worst predictor out there?
I mean, a lot of people got. Did you get Brexit and Trump right?
I got Trump right.
Okay.
2016. Brexit, I didn't know. I don't think I made a call. I voted Remain, but I actually was quite happy if Brexit worked.
America's too close, and the Electoral College.
You're so. Oh yeah, Brexit really worked out. I just I just you fucked yourselves, guys. Brexit was terrible for England, for the UK. Like, the fact that it can eke out minor economic growth is a good sign, I guess. But, it's barely squeaking by. Like, up until, like, a week ago, it was considered the poorest, you know, big, wealthy nation. It's actually, like, crazy.
It's just too stupid, and that's a conversation for another day.
Mehdi, it's great to see you.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Really enjoyed finally meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Come back.
And when they find 1,000 bottles of baby oil and 500 dildos, there's some suspect activity happening, Piers.
I don't want to know what that was about. That was gross. Yeah, Piers Morgan is a monster. It's, you know, it's been... Oh, it was about the Diddy stuff? Yeah. I haven't looked into that. I haven't had the spoons to deal with it. But Piers Morgan is a monster. We all knew that going in, but I just love watching Mehdi Hasan work, and like, he does such a good job in these matchups. It's kind of crazy. But I really appreciate seeing the rhetoric, like the rhetoric that Mehdi Hasan uses, because I think it's useful in a lot of our day-to-day interactions with other people to try, who might not understand the situation over there. And I think we can glean some information of how to present this issue to other people that might be able to reach them in a way that maybe we wouldn't otherwise. So I hope you all found that segment useful. You know, like I hope you found that good, because I